Look, there's something to be said for the danger associated with a wolf in sheep's clothing, which is exactly what the liberal Zionists are, right? They tell you, oh, we support Israel as a Jewish and a democratic state. So they which is compelling and convincing to a lot of people. And yet Israel has been militarily occupying 5 million Palestinians for decades. So you don't get to call yourself a democracy if half of the people that live under your control, or a third of the people that live under your control, have no political rights, can be abducted in the middle of the night and put in prison forever.
Sort of like here now.
Sort of like here.
Because, and I've been saying this for a few years, you do not get to be the most violent empire on the face of the earth and not think that shit's going to happen at home.
Well, it presents a very interesting conundrum because, as we know, the buck always stops with Israel, even with the president of the United States, who the liberal Zio class wants to roll out the red carpet for, but they also want to insult him at the same time. And that is the new cover of Time magazine. With,
I've learned phrases I never knew were phrases from this. Let me tell you, they're not good.
Don't get me started on Time magazine.
Well, Trump has something in between his chin. I'm not sure what that is, but
they're calling it neck pussy now, or whatever the neck equivalent of camel toe is. It's neck toe. Although Peter didn't know what camel toe was until I
know what camel toe is. What are you talking?
You did not know what it was.
I know what it was. Yes, I did. I'm going to start.
Rachel.
However, I am now looking at it and I can see it. I didn't see it before, but now I can see it. And while on the one hand, they are clearly wanting to insult his physical appearance, they are in love with his politics, because if you remember, Zach, at the very beginning of his presidency, he decided to do something that only got stopped because of Tucker Carlson, of all people. They wanted him to go to war in Syria. They wanted him to bomb Damascus, which he decided to do for a moment. And then you had all of them, Fareed Zakaria, Van Jones. It was all over the place where they're like, this is the night Trump became the president. And then Tucker Carlson, to his credit, says, you do not want to start a war with Syria. If we take out Assad, it's going to result in ISIS most likely taking over. And then he came to his senses, decided not to do it, and then everybody reverted back to he's a Russian agent, he's not really the president, and yet here he did exactly what they wanted him to do, and now they're going to fawn over him by suggesting that he freed the Palestinians. Isn't that what he did, Jen? Isn't that what he did, Zach?
Well, as we already pointed out earlier in the stream, you said at a figure that's different than the figure I saw, but Israel has already killed 15 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip since October 10th, when the ceasefire went into effect.
No, that is totally fake news. I totally stopped everything. Believe me, I stopped everything.
Yeah, with the neck.
And it injured dozens. So Israel has already killed or injured multiples.
Yeah.
Of the number of Israeli hostages and prisoners of war released on October 10th. I mean, it's remarkable. Not to mention, they also reneged on the part of the agreement in which they were supposed to open up the Rafah crossing, which is extremely important because that's Gaza's only border with the outside world. So Israel basically said, the thing we promised to give you, a connection to the outside world, we're actually not going to give you. We're also going to cut the number of aid trucks in half from 600 to 300. So, you're just going to eat half a meal instead of a whole meal every day. If you're lucky enough to even get those, because according to the UN, they can't even deliver the aid because there's no roads left. How do you drive amidst rubble? You can't even deliver the aid. So, and then we have also reports that none of the hospital equipment is coming in. So the right stuff isn't even getting in. Not enough is getting in. The border remains closed at Rafah. They're continuing to slaughter people. It's important to focus on the details here because it's not just like one type of killing. We've seen reports of tank shells. We've seen reports of quadcopter drones. We've seen reports of Israeli troops just firing on Palestinians. So what we're now moving into is sort of a genocide, a slow motion genocide. Of instead of 100 Palestinians killed every day, okay, it'll just be 5. And instead of 300 wounded every day, okay, it's just going to be 20 or 30 now. Okay, instead of 15 Palestinians starving to death a day, it'll just be maybe 1 or 2 now. It's just a slower version of the same thing we've been witnessing for 2 years.
And this is why, and I mean, obviously, this whole agreement that was come to by us and the our Arab bitch nations that just do what we want them to do and sell out their own people, they're the ones who came with this brilliant agreement. And Hamas was basically bullied into signing it, but now they're wanting to take away all their weapons. There's there is no way that they're going to do that. They're not going to do that.
This was a one-phase deal. I don't even really think it's fair to call it a ceasefire deal, because it wasn't primarily about ceasing fire. As we just said, Israel hasn't ceased fire. It was about hostage and prisoner of war exchanges. That's what this deal was about.
But they re-arrest them, right?
And I saw one report they've already we know multiple Palestinians were released in this exchange who had been were already captured by Israel, I believe, that were already in prison prior to this swap. That is to say, sorry, let me start over. In January 2025, when Israel and Hamas signed that deal, there were a number of Palestinians that were released, right? There were, I forget the exact number of Palestinian prisoners released in that swap, but there were a bunch, right? And some of those Palestinians that were released in January were rearrested and then were re-released just a few days ago.
So they've released them twice as part of 2. The same person got released for 2 prisoner deals. That's about right.
And the whole absurdity of the whole thing, if you recall, during that period, the first ceasefire deal was 42 days or so, and there was an exchange of captives like once a week or whatever it was for like a few weeks. So during that entire period of time, when Israel was releasing, when the Palestinians were releasing Israeli captives, and at the same time that Israel was releasing Palestinian captives, Israel just went about and arrested more Palestinians during those same 42 days than it released. So by the end of the 42 days, Israel actually had more Palestinian prisoners than at the beginning, despite having released all those Palestinians. So it's a joke. The whole concept of a hostage exchange is a joke, because Israel can just go into Gaza tomorrow and rearrest all the people that were released.
Exactly.
And it's not that it can, it will, and it does.
Yeah. And it's interesting because most people don't realize, because they haven't been paying attention to this really other than the past couple of years. The majority of the Palestinian hostages are completely unrelated to what's been going on in Gaza. The majority of the Palestinian hostages have been taken from the West Bank. And there have been people that have been released that have been there 20-something plus years, even longer. And these are people that are political prisoners. Make no mistake. These are even the ones who have been supposedly convicted of crimes are political prisoners. And it's just so obvious that that's how this works.
Yeah, like for all these security prisoners, the lifers, a lot of them killed Israeli soldiers who were occupying their homes and brutalizing their children and stealing their property and murdering them. So those are so in many cases, where even the lifers, like the bad guys, like even those guys, they're all political prisoners because they were all arrested in the context of an illegal, belligerent military occupation. Israel has no right to arrest any of those people. It shouldn't even be there. And then you had 1,700 Palestinians, 1,700, 58 times the number of Israeli captives who Israel didn't even claim had committed any offense. And by the way, these are 1,700 prisoners that are different from the 3,300 administrative detainees who are also a form of hostages. And those are people who are just grabbed off the streets of Ramallah and Nablus and put in a torture dungeon without having been charged with a crime. And their detention is renewable indefinitely. That's the 3,300. Then you have the 1,700. They weren't even administrative detainees. They literally were just hostages.
Yes.
So that's the only word to even use to describe them.
Navy EOD vet, are the 400 children in Israeli prisons political prisoners? You said it in the very first part of that. They're children. They're children. That's it.
Yeah. Now, while our corporate media is going to continue to fawn over Trump because we are an Israel first country at the top, the American people are not, but we know what we're facing right now. Jen, you've often said Trump is the most honest liar
Ever.
he's ever seen.
Ever.
So-
And let me tell you, it's like, I don't understand how more people don't appreciate that. I've never seen a more honest liar.
Totally going in for the oil. That's the reason. Well, if you want to at
Love
least
that.
admit a few war crimes and crimes against humanity while you're at it, that's what he decided to do at the Knesset the other day.
Promises
Gonna make it a
from
lot
many
easier.
other American presidents, you know that. They kept promising. I never understood it until I got there. There was a lot of pressure put on these presidents. It was put on me too, but I didn't yield to the pressure. But every president for decades said, we're going to do it. The difference is I kept my promise and officially recognized the capital of Israel and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem.
Now, how many people had to die as a result of you trying to start a holy war in the Middle East?
If I may,
Please.
on the same day that Donald Trump and company, I believe Ivanka Trump was there, Jared Kushner was there, obviously Miriam and Sheldon Adelson were both there at the inauguration.
Ivanka did go and kiss the wall. She did do that.
At the inauguration ceremony of that U.S. embassy in Jerusalem. Was it 2018 or 2019? 2018, right? Of course it was 2018, because on that very same day, you had the Israeli military lined up at the fence of Gaza. You had what was known at the time called the Great March of Return,
Yes.
which started in March 2018 and was carrying on for weeks and weeks. Every week, tens of thousands of Palestinians would protest, demanding the right of return, calling for an end to the siege and the blockade. And then March and April, and what happened in May? On May 14th, 2018, on the exact same day that Donald Trump moved the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, illegally recognizing Israel's annexation of that city, Israeli snipers stood at the gates of Gaza and sniped 61 Palestinians in a single day. It was the most murderous day, one of the most murderous days for Palestinians to date in Israeli history. And if you go and read that report, many reports have been written about the Great March of Return. And the Israeli snipers were playing games. They were targeting kneecaps. Oh, today we're going to target kneecaps. Tomorrow we're going to target heads. Oh, they targeted medics. They targeted journalists. They targeted children. And what were these people doing? They were nonviolently protesting their own ethnic cleansing. And they were slaughtered for it. And at the same time that Trump is illegally annexing Jerusalem or recognizing the illegal annexation of Jerusalem. That's who Donald Trump is.
SMY, he's not in a synagogue. He's in the Knesset, which is their legislature. He's speaking in the Knesset and addressing these subjects.
Excuse me, I've got a lot more to say, so you're going to want to stay tuned.
Isn't that right, Miriam? Look at Miriam. She's back there. Stand up, Miriam. Stand up.
It's going to get good. This is where he admits some good stuff.
Miriam and Sheldon would come into the office. They'd call me. He'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else I could think of. Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got $60 billion in the bank. $60 billion. And she loves, I think she's saying no more. And she loves Israel, but she loves it. And they would come in, and her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was a very aggressive, very supportive of me. And he'd call up, can I come over and see you? I say, Sheldon, I'm the president of the United States. It doesn't work that way. He'd come in, we would do. But they were very responsible for so much, including getting me thinking about Golan Heights, which is probably one of the greatest things to ever happen to Israel.
It's glorious. Your president just basically admitted that he's a traitor.
So for the two anti-Zionist Jews here, could you please explain to the audience, again, this was complete bribery if there ever was, but what was the whole I guess, what you would call story arc of the Golan Heights? What was the whole purpose of this?
Well, that's just territory that they've been trying to take, like the West Bank. The Golan Heights was Syria. That's where they stole from Syria. It's just stolen territory. I mean, Zach, I'm sure you know more about the details.
Yeah, in 1967, the Israeli government occupied the Golan Heights from Syria after that war that Israel started.
Mm-hmm.
And the Golan Heights is considered to be a strategic location because it's mountainous, you have high hilltops, so Israel wanted to control that forever. So in the early 80s, it annexed the territory. Of course, it's not recognized by anyone, I mean, except for the U.S., because you can't conquer land through war.
Apparently you can.
It doesn't work that way anymore. It used to work that way in like the 15th century, but it's the 21st century. Doesn't work that way anymore. But Donald Trump says it still works that way.
Yep.
Now, Miriam and Sheldon Adelson are an interesting couple. Sheldon Adelson used to have a joke. He would repeat it all the time. He doesn't have that many interviews, but if you browse the interviews, he always repeats the same joke. He would say, it's the same style that Trump does. A friend of mine always says, "You're the tallest guy in the world." By the way, Sheldon Adelson is very short. So this is sort of part of the setup. A friend of mine always says, "You're the tallest guy in the world." I say, "How do you figure that?" He says, when you're standing on your wallet. Like literally, this is Sheldon Adelson's like best punchline that he repeats every time he's in an interview with anybody. It's like, a friend of mine always used to ask me, "You're the tallest guy in the world." I mean, Sheldon Adelson he died a few years ago, but and so Miriam has carried the torch forward. They began to donate to Republicans, I believe, in 2012. Perhaps it was even earlier than that, but basically in every election season from 2012 to the present, so every 2 years, because you also have midterms. So basically from 2012 to the present, they donate on average $100 million per campaign cycle. So just they've donated almost $1 billion to Republican candidates over the past decade.
Right.
I mean, they're like by far the largest donor to the Republican Party.
She bought the Golan Heights. She bought the Golan Heights. They bought the West Bank. That's basically what they did. And your president just acknowledged that he's a traitor.
Oh, yeah. Right in front of that flag.
And by the way, we knew this already at the time. Like he's saying it now in a very direct way.
Yeah.
If you go back to 2018, when the United States government moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and when the U.S. Annexed Golan, all the reporting was very, very clear that basically this was a showstopper for the Adelsons. And if Trump wanted to keep getting the money, this was a quid pro quo. We knew that at the time.
And in his mind, it's the cost of doing business. That's how he looks at it. That's how he interprets it. So we'll finish it up.
Miriam, stand up, please. She really is. I mean, she loves this country. She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once, I said, "So Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel?" She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say. We love you. Thank you, darling, for being here. That's a great honor. Great honor. She's a wonderful woman.
So the president just told us that representatives that are paying for his time from a foreign nation have commanded policy by him. Like it's totally clear. Like I appreciate the transparency.
Because we had years and years during which time we were told that the Russian government is trying to influence the president and is trying to control the outcome of our elections. And we don't need any evidence. We don't need secret files that have been, by some secret agent who's working on behalf of some shadowy foreign government. No, we just have the U.S. president tell us directly. My political policy choices are directly controlled by a foreign agent. I mean, that's what we just witnessed.
Yes, I think it was cool. I appreciate that. That's why I appreciate his candor with these matters.
Yeah. Well, That's not the only thing he had to say. It gets even worse.
Oh no!
Right here.
What more?
These two men are good men right here.
No.
Hey, I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon?
Huh?
Give him a pardon.
So that people who don't necessarily know who we're listening to. So that's Trump asking Herzog, who's the president of Israel, to pardon Milikowski for what he's being tried for there, which is bribes, which is just corrupt, which here doesn't even make the news. So he was like, he took like $100,000 or something, and there's like a corruption lawsuit. And so that's all they're talking about. They're not even talking about that he's doing a Holocaust.
The only thing worse than genocide in Israel is accepting cigars and champagne as bribes.
Clearly.
Now, what's remarkable about that clip is that it does indicate some amount of awareness on the part of Donald Trump that the war is probably not going to end. Because ask yourself this, why is Trump asking Herzog to pardon Netanyahu? Because Trump knows very, very well that Netanyahu can't ever lose an election again. And he can't even go up for an election again, because that might mean he would lose a potential election. Like, he has to stay in power until he dies. Like that's basically what has to happen now. Or because what will happen if he loses power and is out of government, then he no longer has protection as prime minister. He can't be convicted of a crime as sitting prime minister. So he has immunity. But as soon as he's no longer prime minister, he will face charges of, he has 3 outstanding cases: bribery, corruption, and breach of public trust. He will return to court where he no longer has protection. He's out of power. And we've all seen what happens to ex-Israeli prime ministers when they lose power. Ehud Olmert, for example, he wound up in prison. What will happen to Netanyahu? Well, he will go to prison. That's what will happen. The Israeli public doesn't like him. He's very unpopular. He obviously has
genocide, mind you.
Yeah, sorry. Just to be very, very clear.
Yeah.
His unpopularity has nothing to do with the genocide.
No.
Most Jewish Israelis have no qualms about Israel's actions in the Gaza Strip.
Exactly.